in 2024, and they released that policy statement. Um, what it essentially does is it builds on the fact that technology is constantly improving and changing, and in order to increase access and ensure adoption by contractors, we needed to focus on a few things. Um, One of those is making the digital model as a part of the legal document or the contract, so that these digital models can be used in the contracting form as they are. That way, it's pushing for widespread adoption, and there's a limited risk mitigation for contractors when they start using these technologies. The second part of that policy platform was pushing for an open data standard.
Hey,
So that all the different,
Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt you. Are you sharing slides with us, or would you like to share slides with us?
no, I don't have any slides. I do
Oh, okay,
apologize.
okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Sorry to stop you there.
absolutely. But the second portion of the document was essentially pushing for an open data standard due to the fact that there's tons of different data sources and softwares out there. So as long as the systems talk together, then everything works well. But having a set standard or a set software can be prohibitive to some contractor members, especially those who are smaller or just starting out in the tech area. So that's the policy framework. What we're currently doing is AGC's recently updated our BIM education program. So this is a full education program that helps contractors of all levels get comfortable with digital tools. Previously, we've noticed that BIM was mostly being utilized in vertical construction. So with this latest update, we've increased the amount of horizontal data and actual uses in um, highway and transit projects to show how these technologies can be used for all types of projects. It's a great resource. If anybody's ever interested, please let me know. I'm happy to share that. But it's on the AGC website, and it's an open for both members and non-members. Of course, there's a bit of a fee there for the program, but it's an excellent way to get started in getting your head wrapped around the technology as well as the practical uses, from everything from scheduling, coordination, and cost control. And then finally, what we've been working on lately is the joint committee with AASHTO, AGC, and ARTBA. We are talking about our next year's policy topic, and this joint association committee essentially meets every year, and we put out these joint policy topics. AGC has selected digital delivery and expanding that to contractors of all sizes. So we'll be exploring some of the issues that go along with implementing digital delivery and how we can mitigate those to bring about a wider adoption of the technology. So that's currently what the digital means and methods group has been working on. Our future is looking towards working more on expanding digital delivery and answering some of the questions that contractors and other parties and industry affiliates may have for how we can make this better. Connor, do you have anything you want to?
No, I mean that I think you covered the update from AGC for sure. If that's the update, it's probably just best to see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, Janice, let's go to the next slide. So good afternoon, everyone. It has been a pleasure to be with all of you today. I'm Cyndee Hoagland, the Senior Vice President for the owner and public sector here at Trimble. And Trimble is also a very proud global member of Building Smart. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. ARTBA, as you know, has been supporting and advocating on behalf of stakeholders who build and design and operate our infrastructure here in the United States for many decades. And they're an incredible association with over 8,000 members strong across DOTs and contractors. You can go to the next slide. Engineering firms. We also work with civil construction and materials manufacturers and technology providers such as Trimble. So in 2020, ARTBA established an innovation forum to look at ways that we could help infrastructure owners and its ecosystem of providers to better leverage technology to improve efficiencies and processes and safety throughout their projects. And the members of the forum, of which I've had the opportunity to co-chair with Dustin Olson, who's the CEO of Clyde Construction, we chose to focus on digital construction, which was really driven at that time by these significant efficiencies that could be realized for ARTBA members. And I also want to give a shout out to Will Sharp in the room there from HDR, because he has been very helpful in advocacy and supporting for the DOTs as well. So thank you, Will. All right, let's go to the next slide. So we knew also that to be successful in our pursuit, we needed not only sound policy, but also funding. And we needed thought leadership, as Will Holmes noted earlier today. And so over that next year in 2020 and into 2021, ARTBA worked very hard to inform and to advocate for the adoption of digital construction technologies, to help the DOTs and infrastructure owners to really get access to funding that would help them to leverage technologies to manage these projects and the assets, and to do it better and faster and safer. And so what you see on this slide is the policy statement that we had developed as part of the Innovation Forum. And the definition of digital construction technologies really encompasses a broad range of capabilities, but also including BIM. So if we go to the next slide, and proudly in 2021, Congress established the Advanced Digital Construction Management Systems $100 million grant program, known as ADCMS, as many of you have talked about today. And it is a 5-year program through the Surface Transportation Bill. It is managed through Federal Highway, and it is partly based on some of the work that ARTBA did on our policy statement. The program enables the state DOTs to apply for these federal funds that really can advance a project that they have and take advantage of these cost savings and the technology today. The program has been successful with a higher volume of applicants that have asked for funding than was available. And today we have, in the first 3 years of the bill, 18 DOTs that have been awarded in the first 2 rounds of funding. So that's just 50 million, and there's 50 million more to go. And so we hope to be able to support additional DOTs on their programs and on their journey through September of 2026, before the new bill comes out. Something else to note is that Alan mentioned earlier the need for DOTs to submit stories to James, to talk about the progress that's been made. But also, I would encourage the impact that these funds have made in moving the overall industry forward, which is a lot of what we've been talking about today. And now we need to get technology implemented and activated into the field, even if in small pilots, so that we can actually demonstrate those benefits. And ARTBA is also advocating for open data standards. We are advocating for model as a legal document, and we are advocating for life cycle digital workflows, which a lot of us have been talking about today. Move to the next slide. So the effort and the work that we're doing in the reauthorization that's coming about is basically to continue this work and to encourage that the ADCMS program remain fully funded, if not increased, going into the next 5-year Surface Transportation Bill, which would then start in October 1 of 2026. Now, Jim just mentioned before the concern for funding, and it's really everyone in the industry getting together and advocating and working hard to ensure that another $100 million of that grant program can begin starting in October of 2026 for the next 5 years. And so that's a lot of the work that we're doing, is really to advocate on behalf of ADCMS, also advocate for open data standards. The model is legal document discussions, and what exactly is that value proposition and what that means. And so we're here as part of ARTBA and what we're doing to collaborate with all of you as part of the stakeholders. And so I would just encourage you to reach out to myself or to Allison Klein if we can answer any questions to you in regards to ADCMS and what ARTBA is doing along with AGC to really advocate and make sure that those funds exist for you all for next year. And that's it on my side. So back to you, Elaine.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? We can run the mics. Oh, got something?
I know we're having this conversation when it comes to ITS devices, but which has pretty much been living on grants for the last 15 years, I'm pretty sure. And they want to, you know, put that more into like a formula funding, like an R3, like an interstate rebuilding bill. Is there any efforts, do you think, to put it into a formula funding at some point or make that recommendation?
Yeah, so I can give you some feedback from some of the DOTs as well as for the industry that was spoken to. I think that there are some DOTs that would like to have that top line kind of brought back into formula funding. The establishment, though, with the support of ARTBA, is to advocate for those discretionary funds in a separate program so that it really allows for both large and small DOTs to be able to access these funds outside of formula funding and allow them to run these pilots and to really advance the digital technologies in the program and the work that we've all been talking about today.
I guess the same question for you came in earlier. Can you provide some insight on the support that does or does not exist at local chapters and what can be done to increase their buy-in?
And are you asking local chapters in regards to ARTBA or AGC?
Yeah, local chapters, like I guess there's local chapters in each state, or that's just a question that came in. Is there local chapters in each state of ARTBA? Or is
Yeah,
it
there are a handful of chapters. I think that the good news here is that you'll see across the associations, both with AGC, with ARTBA, as well as Matt, who's going to speak in regards to ACEC. We really are looking at this as moving the industry as a whole forward. I think as Ian and others spoke at the beginning, where the United States sits as opposed to international is really behind. We are laggards, and part of that is due to not having standards, and it's not due to adopting and moving forward into the digital world fully. And so I think that you'll find the advocacy is really both at the federal and the state, but also at the industry level, because it will be beneficial to all the stakeholders.
Elaine, I might clarify that. Cyndee, that question, what it was in regards to particularly for the construction groups in the states that are ARTBA members, you know, I think we have really good clarity and support at the national level with ARTBA, and I think the digital construction, you know, white paper and policy statement have been great. But how do we get that down to the state level? Because there has been some challenges in some states on the contractor side where there's some hesitancy to use some of these new technologies and move into like models of legal deliverable. So I think that question came up a couple of days ago, but I think that's what they were getting at specifically for some of the construction in some of the states. And I don't know if that was AGC states or ARTBA states, but you know, how can we get the national stuff down to the state level and make sure they're aware of what's going on? And and they're part of the process.
So I know internally within ARTBA, well, you probably know this as well, that we've been holding more webinars to actually educate and inform all sizes of the ARTBA members to actually understand what it is that it is or is not. And a lot goes back to training, and it goes back to helping to bring them along the journey. And so there's industry and technology companies that are actually helping. So Autodesk was mentioned today, Esri was mentioned today. We are all responsible to also educate the industry and to help them and to train them to actually move in this direction. So more to come, Will. It is a journey, and it's something that we have to help to bring everyone along with the value proposition of what comes from it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much. I can't even hear what she's saying. We have to, oh, he's got it? Okay, good. Good, I don't have to. All right, next we have ACEC on digital delivery update, and we have virtual, we have Matt, and here we have Daniel as well. And Matt has his presentation up, so we'll let him get started. I don't know if you want to take the podium or sit there. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Really appreciate the invitation to be with you virtually this afternoon. And I'm keenly aware that I'm the last, Dan and I are the last folks on the agenda before you wrap up for the day. I wish I could be there in person. We had our fall conference there in San Diego just a few short weeks ago. Just absolutely spectacular city. I'm very jealous. I wish I could be there. I hope you have a great time this evening, whatever you end up doing while you're there. But yeah, just again, really appreciate the engagement, the opportunity for ACEC to participate. You know, we've been at this for a long time in a lot of different sectors, and that collaboration is really valuable, and we appreciate it a lot. Some of the content I'm going to go over may be familiar to some of you who were in Chicago for this meeting last year, but I know there's a lot of new attendees, and so we're going to make sure to get the full scope of what ACEC has been doing in the space for the last several years. And I think just as importantly, really great opportunity to introduce to you Dan Reinke from GFT, who's really going to be taking a more prominent role for the association in our engagement across the different sectors and initiatives that are going on. I want to just give you a quick overview of a member firm survey that we did last year, which led into the development of a more full-blown policy statement that our committees developed, and then talk about our priorities for the surface transportation reauthorization. And then I'll turn it over to Dan to share some additional thoughts. As I said, we've been engaged with JTCES, I think since it was founded. We've had appointees on that committee. Did some early survey work from our members to kind of feed into that participation. But then last year in the springtime, we did a fuller blown survey building on that earlier work, but wanted to get an up-to-date kind of understanding of our member firms' experiences, expertise, and the things that they care about in digital delivery. Had a good number of member firm responses across our transportation risk management and technology committees. We coordinated on the questions and topics with the leaders from both the Joint Committee as well as the BIM pooled funds that presented earlier. So I think there's really good alignment in terms of what we were seeking and what our partners wanted to hear about from the engineering industry. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the questions that were really significant, again, as they fed into the development of our policy position. And a lot of this really does reinforce and reaffirm the feedback and issues that we had flagged earlier in the process back in 2021. But far and away, the most prominent considerations and significant risks that our firms identified when delivering the model as a legal document or signing and sealing, a BIM model, were a clear definition of model accuracies and tendencies, and then equally the quality control process for those models. And Will was just referencing some of these issues, including the standard of care. For those of you who may not know, ACEC represents 5,500 member companies. We represent the business interests of our member firms. And so really focused on, those contractual terms and conditions, risk allocation, and liability and standard of care issues in the work that we do. And they're really sensitive in this area, particularly to expectations of perfection and what is the intended use, what needs to be clearly articulated in terms of the level of development, the level of accuracy, as Will mentioned, that model element breakdown. And then when we hand it over to the contractor, what is the intended use and what are the tolerances and how are they going to interact with that model in the work that they're doing? We also wanted to get a sense of, from a programmatic standpoint for us as an association, making sure we're meeting our members' needs. What are the impacts going to be on you? And far and away, training was the number one priority. So we've stepped up. We have a number of different education programs that we've delivered over the last year and a half. Certainly committed to doing more of that. It has been a feature of a concurrent session, I think, at every conference that we've had for the last 2 years, and will continue going forward. So making sure that our firms are equipped and the executives and the staff are equipped with what they need to do to manage this transition. And you can see the other benefits there, impact, better designs. They're going to have to develop new quality control processes, and so forth. And then the other piece we wanted to be sure to capture in the survey was, and this was prompted by interactions we had with folks at Federal Highways, Catherine and others when we were walking through this, was identifying the benefits of digital delivery to the industry as a whole, so that we really have our sort of eye on that North Star of what we're achieving and why, and that the articulation of those benefits was a feature of the digital delivery position paper that our committees approved last fall. And there are 4 elements to the paper. There's those anticipated benefits, typical challenges to adoption, the key considerations that we identify for our member firms as they engage in this space, and then just broad recommendations, both from a policy and practice standpoint. And again, we start the paper with an articulation of those benefits about improved collaboration and communication, increased efficiency and productivity, improved accuracy and quality, and then overall advanced lifecycle performance. What our firms identified as typical challenges to adoption, first of all, the initial costs and investment, particularly on the technology side, but also the workforce training and change management piece. Of our 5,000 member companies, 3/4 of those are small businesses. They have 50 or fewer employees. The depth and breadth of the industry is really those small businesses, and they face particular challenges in this technology adoption and the expectations of clients and contractors in this space. We want to be sure we're sensitive to that. Had obviously a lot of conversation at this conference about standardization and interoperability. We're really congratulate the pooled funds and all of the progress that's been made there, bolstering those issues, and then obviously attended with cybersecurity and data management challenges as well. In terms of what we are flagging for our members, really putting an emphasis on upfront, excuse me, communication, and articulating to their clients in those contract negotiations the benefits and value that are going to be delivered, and making sure that that's captured and reflected in the terms and conditions of the contract. As I mentioned before, being really deliberate about model intended uses and accuracy requirements, what it is and what it isn't, what it can do and what it can't do, has to be really well defined in those negotiations. Being really attentive to quality management practices. We do speak to generative design and AI, and candidly, this is an area of the paper that probably needs to get updated. I mean, and the applications and potential within AI is just, as you all know, just changing exponentially and growing on a day-to-day basis. So we flag it, but that's an area where we really need to be mindful of developments and the implications there. And then again, this is an issue that's been flagged repeatedly in this conference, is the need for common terminology. And so that when we're negotiating contracts and even having conversations with our clients, that everybody understands, what terms mean. And the paper cites just specific DOT examples as what we would want to hold up as best practices there. And then last, we make some policy recommendations. First and foremost, promoting industry-wide open data standards. So we're fully aligned with the other groups that you've heard from there and the work that you all are doing in that space. Consideration and support for upfront financial investments that firms have to make in adoption and utilization of these technologies. Enhanced cybersecurity measures and data management, investing in workforce development, and then a continued commitment to engaging with stakeholders. And that's sort of indicative of our participation and our members' participation in events like these and other venues. And so this is the concluding statement at the end of the paper: our commitment to championing the adoption of digital delivery, leveraging those benefits, the digital tools, and overcoming the anticipated challenges for a more accurate, sustainable future. And then a commitment to advocating for open data standards and other tools that are necessary for that transition, while keeping an eye, again, our lane as the Business Association of Engineering is the financial, professional, and ethical interests of our member companies as they undertake this digital transformation. And just transitioning now to the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. ACEC is an advocacy organization, and a lot of our priorities closely align with our partners at ARTBA and AGC, and Cyndee's particularly referenced support for the continuation and expansion of ADCMS grants. We have flagged that as a priority. We supported and signed on to a coalition letter with those partners and a number of the technology providers to Capitol Hill, clearly calling out the benefits of those grants and promoting DOT technology adoption. So that's one piece of it. We, obviously, like all the groups, we're advocating for a continuation of the current levels of investment and funding across all programs. Parochially, we are very, very focused on helping our clients transition to more lump sum contracts and value-based contracting. These digital means and methods and the tools that are available are really just changing the business of engineering and the contractual work that we're doing for our public sector clients. And the contracting regime and the frameworks that we're working under have to adopt and get updated as well. And so we're looking to promote that in the reauthorization and equipping federal highways with some additional tools to help foster that transition among state DOTs. With that, let me hand it over to Dan there on site to add a few comments from his perspective. This next slide is one that's familiar. Clearly, a lot of the folks are working from the same song sheet, which is good. So there's a lot of consistency there. But Dan, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Can everybody hear me okay in the back? So you've made it. You are 3 slides away from the end. And this one you've already seen twice. So we're going to fly through this one. So as Matt mentioned, I'm happy to be here today. Dan Reinke with GFT. In my current role, I'm the digital delivery manager for the transportation group. So that's, and for those of you that don't know, GFT is Gannett Fleming and Trans Systems, which recently merged together. So transportation is all things rail, bridge, and anything horizontal. So that's my role to drive that transformation, this change that we're all talking about today. Most times when I introduce my role, I have to go into more detail about what that actually means. You all know exactly what that means. So this slide right here, we've already talked about. We want people to, well, as you said, not be locked into a certain platform. Choose a platform that works best for your project, for your people, for your client to deliver the data and get the outcome you want. And then let that data flow uninterrupted through the project into digital as-built into asset management. And then when there needs to be repairs or recommissioning or rebuilding of it, you've got this as-built to go back to. That's the crux of this slide. Next slide, Matt, since you're driving. Some recommendations from a practitioner's perspective. As you're going into this, there's risk with anything. Understand the risks that you're going into with this. It depends on we'll say the experience of your team, how you're organized. Do you have a BIM execution in place? The next, what I'm going to talk about a little bit is your quality control processes. That can really get you in trouble if you're not doing it the right way. So think about all this stuff. It's not the traditional way we've been delivering projects for the last 30 or 40 years. Another one, I just spent a half an hour, about a month ago at the Ohio Transportation Engineering Conference speaking on this exact topic, the next bullet, quality management. We all in this room know how to QA, QC a project on the plan set side, whether it's paper or PDF. We've all redlined it in Bluebeam or at the pen. We know what to look for. We know what to check. It's pretty routine. Model-based is a whole different animal. It came up at one point today. As PEs, we have an ethical obligation to uphold that PE, that standard, that ethical standard, and that standard of care. That's not changing, but the tools we're using are changing by the minute, and they're getting massively more complex. They're becoming powerful, but we got to make sure we know what we're doing with them, and we're still delivering that standard of care. We can't lose sight of that. We keep talking about training. We need to train our people and keep them engaged across the company, like even peer-to-peer exchanges on how things are going, what problems you're having, what successes are you having. Incentivize younger folks to speak up with their ideas, because sometimes they might be shy about speaking up. The new guy doesn't want to say something crazy and get shot down. Let's engage with everybody throughout all levels of the company. Technology investment kind of goes without saying. We can't do 3D modeling on administrative laptops. We need to be investing in our cloud services. Having the right softwares in place. It's that tech stack is evolving. We need to make sure and keep on top of that. And I would advocate for people from all levels of the company, like seniors all the way down to, we'll say, more junior staff, keep them involved in the industry. The more they can see in events like this or conferences, that's when you really get to see what other people are doing. You can read on LinkedIn all day long. You can talk to your peers in your company, but you're only doing what you're doing in your own little bubble. Get out there and see what else is going on. There's a lot going on in industry. And the last one there, I can speak to you personally, is I've seen a significant uptick in our adoption of digital delivery when you get leadership buy-in. If you're constantly fighting upstream to get this stuff implemented, it takes leadership buy-in, it takes resources and money, and it takes resources and people to do all of this. So if you can get that leadership at the top, it makes adoption and implementation a whole lot easier. Next slide. So our next steps is we are going to continue the partnership, but we've talked about with AASHTO Joint Technical Committee. And then we're going to actively participate in the FHWA stakeholder groups. I actually attended my first one at IHEAP a few weeks ago. It was interesting. I'd never been to one before, and it was like I'm seeing here, this is a large attendance for what I'm hearing. The one we had at IHEAP for the stakeholder group was huge. It was standing room only in the room. There weren't enough seats. There were people standing all around the room. So I hope that grows, and I hope people keep staying engaged in that. As we're doing today, keep advocating for open standards. It's important for adoption. It's important for this to actually work. We're going to continue to work with our local, not local, but the state ACEC digital delivery efforts. Make sure they're moving ahead. They're collaborating within themselves and state to state. And then lastly, the AEC paper that Matt mentioned, we're going to continue to update that, which was first published in actually November of last year. So I think that is the last slide. You finally made it. So questions?